I'm Tyler Mitchell, 37, and until last year, I thought my 12-year marriage to Jessica was everything I'd ever wanted. Then I discovered her affair with her coworker Garrett Sullivan. The devastation nearly broke me, until I decided on a different approach. Instead of just confronting Jessica, I reached out to Amanda, Garrett's wife. What began as a warning to a fellow victim evolved into an unexpected alliance. Our appearance together at the company holiday party created the most brutally effective wake-up call imaginable. If you're watching this from somewhere where loyalty still matters, hit that like button and subscribe as I take you through the most brutal wake-up call I ever delivered to someone who thought they could have it all without consequences. Before discovering Jessica's affair, my life seemed perfectly on track. As a business consultant for Hamilton Partners, I had built a reputation for turning struggling companies around. My career provided us financial stability, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and the freedom to travel twice yearly. Life was good. I met Jessica during our junior year at Northwestern. She was studying marketing, her auburn hair always catching the late afternoon sun as she rushed to class. Our first conversation happened in the campus coffee shop when we both reached for the last blueberry muffin. I let her have it, she insisted on splitting it, and somehow that simple gesture of sharing seemed symbolic of what our relationship would become. After graduation, we dated for 2 more years before I proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan. The wedding was everything we'd hoped for, intimate but beautiful, with close friends and family celebrating our commitment. Jessica's father Warren gave a toast that had everyone in tears, talking about how proud he was to see his daughter with someone who respected and cherished her. We bought our dream home 3 years into our marriage, a colonial-style 4-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood with excellent schools. We spent weekends renovating it together, planning spaces for the children we hoped to have. Jessica decorated each room with meticulous care, creating a showcase home that still felt comfortable and lived in. For nearly a decade, I believed we were happy. We resolved disagreements with reasonable discussion, supported each other's career ambitions, and maintained the physical and emotional intimacy that had drawn us together in the first place. I trusted Jessica completely and believed she felt the same. The first changes were subtle. Jessica started working later, explaining her marketing team was pitching to several new clients. Her phone became a closely guarded possession, always facing down when not in her hand. When texts arrived, she would move to another room to respond. At first, I dismissed these signs. We'd been together 12 years, trust wasn't something I questioned. You're imagining things, I told myself each time doubt crept in. Jessica wouldn't do that to us. Even when she began suggesting I plan more solo fishing trips with my buddies, I saw it as her being supportive of my hobbies, not creating opportunities for her own activities. Looking back, the signs were flashing bright red, but trust is a powerful blinder. Everything changed on a Tuesday in April. I was scheduled for a 3-day business trip to Denver, but the client canceled last minute due to a family emergency. Instead of calling Jessica immediately, I decided to surprise her by coming home early with takeout from her favorite Italian restaurant. I entered our house quietly, hearing the shower running upstairs. Jessica's phone sat on the kitchen counter, lighting up with a text notification. I had never been the type to check her messages, but something about the preview caught my eye. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to feel you again. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. Jessica's password had been the same for years, her childhood dog's name followed by her birth year. The messages between her and Garrett W. left nothing to the imagination. Explicit details of their encounters, plans for their next meeting, even complaints about their respective spouses. Some dated back over 8 months. When Jessica emerged from the shower, wrapped in a towel and humming softly, she froze at the sight of me standing in our bedroom, her phone in my hand. Tyler, you're supposed to be in Denver, she said, voice suddenly thin. And you're supposed to be my faithful wife, I replied, showing her the screen. Who's Garrett? What followed was a masterclass in minimization and deflection. First came denial, claiming I was misinterpreting friendly work banter. When I read specific messages aloud, she switched to admission with qualification it was just physical, meaningless, a mistake that just happened. When I pointed out the 8-month timeline, she broke down, apologizing profusely while somehow making herself the victim of circumstance. I never meant to hurt you, she kept saying. It doesn't mean anything. I packed an overnight bag in silence while she cycled between tears, anger, and pleading. Before leaving, I looked at the woman I'd shared my life with for 12 years and asked only, was anything ever real? I drove to my friend Dominic's apartment in a daze. Dominic and I had been friends since college, and despite his wild bachelor lifestyle, he offered exactly what I needed: a spare bedroom, no pressure to talk, and a hefty pour of bourbon. Take all the time you need, he said, putting sheets on his guest bed. And remember, whatever you decide to do next, I've got your back. That night, staring at Dominic's ceiling, I realized I needed absolute clarity before making any decisions. The next morning, I called Casey Phillips, a private investigator recommended by a client who'd gone through something similar. Casey was straightforward and professional. What exactly do you want to know, and what do you plan to do with the information? She asked during our first meeting. Everything, I replied. And I don't know yet. Over the next 2 weeks, Casey provided documentation that shattered any lingering doubts. Photos of Jessica and Garrett entering hotels, receipts, timeline of their meetings. The affair wasn't a recent development or momentary weakness, it was a carefully maintained second relationship. Most devastating was learning about Garrett Sullivan himself. A sales director at Jessica's company, he was married with 2 children, Maxwell, 10, and Zoe, 7. Their family photos on Facebook showed a seemingly devoted father and husband. His wife Amanda, a former teacher who had become a stay-at-home mom to support his career, appeared in every image, smiling beside the man who was betraying her. He's done this before, Casey told me during our final meeting. According to my sources at their company, Garrett has a history of office relationships. His previous employer had him transfer branches after a harassment complaint was filed, though it was later withdrawn. Dominic urged caution when I mentioned possibly contacting Amanda Sullivan. Think about what you're trying to accomplish, he said one evening as we grilled steaks on his balcony. If it's just revenge, there might be cleaner ways. If it's closure, maybe therapy would be better. But something about Amanda's situation haunted me. In one family photo, she looked at Garrett with such trust and admiration, the same way Jessica had once looked at me. I couldn't stop thinking about her unknowingly building a life on the same quicksand that had just swallowed mine. I started seeing Dr. Reynolds, a therapist specializing in infidelity trauma. During our sessions, I worked through my anger and grief while contemplating my options. There's no morally perfect path here, Dr. Reynolds said during our third session. But ask yourself, what would you have wanted if you were in Amanda's position? The answer was clear. I would want to know. I deliberated for days about how to approach Amanda. A direct message seemed too jarring, an anonymous email too cowardly. Finally, I sent a brief Facebook message. I believe we need to talk about something concerning our spouses. I have information you deserve to know. I'm happy to meet in public wherever you feel comfortable. She responded within hours, suggesting a cafe in a neighboring town, away from both our social circles. I arrived early, securing a corner table that offered privacy. When Amanda walked in, I recognized her immediately from the photos, petite with shoulder-length blonde hair and an alert, intelligent expression that now carried visible concern. Are you Tyler? She asked, remaining standing beside the table. I stood and offered my hand. Yes. Thank you for coming, Amanda. She didn't take my hand. I'm only here because your message was specific enough to be worrying. I have exactly 30 minutes before I need to pick up my children from their piano lesson. That's fair, I said, withdrawing my hand. Please sit. Would you like some coffee? Amanda ordered a black coffee but left it untouched as I carefully explained who I was and my connection to her husband. Her expression remained guarded until I mentioned Jessica's name. Your wife works in marketing at Meridian? She asked, a new tension in her voice. Yes. You've heard of her? Amanda's laugh lacked any humor. Garrett mentions her frequently. Brilliant Jessica with her innovative campaigns. Creative Jessica who understands his vision like no one else. I placed an envelope on the table. There are copies of text messages and photos in here. I'm not showing you to hurt you, but because I wish someone had shown me sooner. Amanda stared at the envelope without touching it. Are you telling me Garrett and your wife are having an affair? Yes. Prove it. Her voice was steady, but her knuckles whitened around her purse strap. I opened the envelope and laid out several key pieces of evidence: screenshots of messages, time-stamped photos from the investigator, hotel receipts. Amanda maintained her composure until she saw a particular image of Garrett and Jessica entering a hotel on March 18th. This was our anniversary, she whispered. He said he had an emergency client dinner. Her composure cracked then. She covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I quietly moved the coffee cups aside and passed her napkins, giving her privacy by pretending to study the cafe's artwork. After several minutes, Amanda straightened her posture and wiped her eyes. 15 years, she said. 15 years I've been married to him. I quit teaching to follow his career moves. I've raised our children while he built his future, our future, he always said. I nodded, understanding completely the vertigo of realizing your life narrative had been partially fictional. I've suspected before, she continued. 3 years ago, there were strange calls, unexplained expenses. When I confronted him, he made me feel crazy for doubting him. Said I was insecure, controlling. Her laugh was bitter. He actually had me apologizing to him. I know exactly what that's like, I said, remembering Jessica's indignation when I questioned her late nights. Amanda studied me with newfound clarity. What are you planning to do about your wife? I'm still deciding. We don't have children, which simplifies things, but 12 years is still 12 years. She nodded, understanding the complexity. I have Maxwell and Zoe to consider. They adore their father. She touched the photos again. But I can't unknow this. I'm not suggesting what you should do, I said carefully. I just felt you deserved the truth. Amanda gathered the evidence back into the envelope. I need time to process this. And to decide what's best for my children. She stood to leave, then hesitated. Thank you, Tyler. This is terrible news, but living in ignorance while being betrayed is worse. As she turned to go, I offered her my card. If you need to talk to someone who understands, I'm available. No pressure or expectations. She took the card, studied it briefly, and slipped it into her purse before walking away, her back straight despite the weight I just added to her shoulders. I didn't expect to hear from her again. 3 days later, however, my phone rang with an unknown number. I confronted him, Amanda said without preamble when I answered. He denied everything until I showed him the evidence. Then he started crying, begging forgiveness. Her voice was hollow. He's sleeping in the guest room now, promising therapy, transparency, whatever I want. I don't know what to do. We talked for nearly an hour. I shared my own conflicted feelings, the sessions with Dr. Reynolds, the advice from friends both married and divorced. Amanda spoke about her fears, financial insecurity, the impact on her children, losing the life she'd built. She'd been predominantly a stay-at-home parent for the past decade, with only occasional substitute teaching to maintain her license. Garrett controls our finances, she explained. I don't even know what assets we have anymore. Our conversations continued over the following weeks, a connection forged through shared trauma. I learned about Amanda's childhood in Wisconsin, her passion for teaching special education, her devotion to Maxwell, who had mild autism and thrived under her patient guidance. She heard about my strained relationship with my achievement-oriented father, my love for restoration projects, the children Jessica and I had planned but continually delayed. These conversations provided a different perspective than I got from Dominic or other friends. Amanda truly understood the unique pain of betrayal by a spouse, the disorienting experience of questioning every memory, wondering which moments had been sincere and which had been performances. Sometimes I look at old photos, she confided during one call, trying to identify exactly when his smile toward me changed. I know, I replied. I've been doing the same thing. While Amanda was confronting her situation head-on, I had chosen a different approach with Jessica. After a week at Dominic's, I returned home, explaining I needed time to think about our future. Jessica interpreted this as willingness to reconcile and launched into what I now recognize as a typical cheater's reconciliation playbook: tearful apologies, excessive affection, elaborate meals, and constant reassurance that Garrett meant nothing to her. What Jessica didn't know was that I was still receiving regular updates from Casey. The affair hadn't ended. They were simply more careful now, using a second phone Jessica had purchased, meeting during lunch hours instead of after work. I documented everything while pretending to consider marriage counseling. You're playing a dangerous game, Dominic warned during one of our lunch meetings. Living with someone you're investigating is going to mess with your head. He wasn't wrong. Each night I lay beside Jessica, listening to her breathing while imagining her with Garrett hours earlier. The duplicity was corrosive, but I needed time to consult with Marcus Fletcher, the divorce attorney I'd quietly retained. Wisconsin is a no-fault state, Marcus explained during our consultation. But evidence of financial misconduct related to the affair could impact asset division. Document everything, especially any marital funds used to facilitate the relationship. In late November, Jessica mentioned the upcoming holiday party at Meridian Marketing. It would mean a lot if you'd come, she said, eyes hopeful. Show support for my work, meet my colleagues. She hesitated before adding, show we're moving forward together. Will Garrett be there? I asked casually. Jessica's smile faltered slightly. Probably. He's the sales director, so yes. But there will be 50 other people too. With his wife? I pressed, watching her reaction carefully. I assume so. I don't really know his wife. Her discomfort was visible. Is that going to be a problem? I shrugged. Why would it be? We're moving forward, right? The idea formed gradually. The holiday party presented a unique opportunity, a controlled environment where both Jessica and Garrett would be present, surrounded by colleagues who knew nothing of their deception. A public venue where neither could easily escape or create a scene without professional consequences. Amanda and I had continued our occasional conversations, which had evolved from mutual support to genuine friendship. During one call, I tentatively broached the subject. Jessica's company is having their holiday party next month. Garrett will be there. I know, Amanda replied. He's already told me to buy a new dress. Apparently, I need to look appropriate for his colleagues. The bitterness in her voice was new. He's been excessively attentive since I confronted him. Watching me constantly, checking my phone. He thinks I don't notice. Have you decided what you're doing long-term? I asked carefully. I've been talking to a financial advisor discreetly, she said, and consulting with an attorney named Sophia Martinez. Preparing, just in case. But I haven't decided yet. The holidays are hard enough on children without adding divorce. I took a deep breath. I have a suggestion. It's unconventional, possibly inappropriate, and you can absolutely say no. I'm listening. What if we attend the holiday party together? As each other's dates? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Amanda spoke, her voice thoughtful. You want to confront them publicly? Not dramatically, I clarified. Just our presence together, knowing what we know. No scenes, no accusations. Just the unavoidable truth that their actions have consequences and connections. That's actually elegant, Amanda said slowly. They've compartmentalized their relationship from their marriages. This would collapse those compartments. Exactly. But only if you're comfortable with it. And only if it serves your goals, whatever they are. Another long pause. Let me think about it. 2 days later, Amanda called back. I'm in, she said without preamble. But we need rules. No excessive drinking. No public accusations. No physical confrontations. We're there to make a point through our presence, not create a spectacle. Agreed. Complete dignity throughout. We met twice to plan our approach, once for coffee and once for dinner at a restaurant 20 miles from either of our homes. We discussed potential reactions, prepared responses, and agreed on boundaries. What began as strategic planning evolved into genuine enjoyment of each other's company. Amanda's quick wit and perceptive insights made our conversations flow easily, while her resilience in the face of betrayal earned my deepest respect. During our second meeting, Amanda revealed she had decided to file for divorce regardless of Garrett's reaction at the party. I realized something, she explained, stirring her soup absently. Even if Garrett never cheats again, I'll never trust him completely. I'll always be watching, wondering, questioning. That's not a marriage, it's a surveillance operation. I nodded, understanding perfectly. What about the kids? That's the hardest part. But I've been reading research on children of divorce versus children in high conflict or dishonest marriages. The data is pretty clear: kids do better with divorced parents who are honest and respectful than with married parents living a lie. She set down her spoon decisively. My children deserve to see what integrity looks like, even when it's difficult. As the party date approached, we finalized our plans. We would arrive together, interact normally with other guests, and respond to Jessica and Garrett's inevitable reactions with calm dignity. We prepared evidence packets to share with key people only if absolutely necessary. No matter what happens, Amanda said during our final phone call before the event, I want to thank you, Tyler. Meeting you has been the one good thing to come from this mess. The evening of Meridian Marketing's holiday party arrived with a sense of inevitability. I spent the afternoon in careful preparation, not just of my appearance but of my emotional state. Dr. Reynolds had suggested visualization techniques to maintain composure during stressful confrontations. Remember, you control your reactions, she had advised. No matter what anyone says or does, you choose how to respond. I selected my charcoal suit with precision, pairing it with the deep blue tie Jessica had given me last Christmas. It brings out your eyes, she had said then. Tonight, it would serve as a subtle reminder of our shared history. Jessica had left early to help with party setup, kissing me goodbye with a nervous energy I now recognized as guilt rather than excitement. You'll come directly to the venue, right? She confirmed for the third time. The Cascade Ballroom at the Windsor Hotel. I'll be there, I promised, maintaining the fiction of a work meeting that would make me slightly late. At 6:30, I pulled into Amanda's driveway. Her house was a handsome two-story colonial with holiday lights framing the windows. Amanda emerged before I reached the door, wearing a simple but elegant black dress, her hair swept up to reveal diamond earrings I later learned had been her grandmother's. You look beautiful, I said, opening the passenger door. Thank you. Her smile was tense but determined. How are you feeling? Like I'm about to jump off a very high diving board, I admitted. She laughed softly. Perfect analogy. Let's hope there's water in the pool. During the 30-minute drive to the Windsor Hotel, we reviewed our approach one final time, then deliberately shifted to lighter topics. A documentary Amanda had recently watched, a restoration project I was considering for the spring. The normal conversation calmed our nerves, reminding us that whatever happened tonight, life would continue afterward. The Windsor's grand entrance was decorated with tasteful holiday arrangements. Inside, we checked our coats and followed the sound of music to the Cascade Ballroom. Amanda's hand tightened on my arm as we approached the entrance. Second thoughts? I asked quietly. She shook her head. No. Just realizing this is really happening. We can still change our minds. Amanda straightened her shoulders. Some things, once known, can't be unknown. Let's do this. We entered the ballroom together, pausing just inside the doorway to survey the scene. Round tables bordered a dance floor where several couples were already moving to a jazz quartet's rendition of Winter Wonderland. A bar lined one wall, a buffet the other. The room was elegantly decorated in silver and blue, with twinkling lights creating a festive atmosphere. It took less than 30 seconds to locate Jessica and Garrett. They stood near the bar, laughing together with the easy intimacy of lovers who believe themselves unobserved. Jessica wore a burgundy dress I'd never seen before, her hand resting casually on Garrett's arm as she leaned in to hear something he was saying. "That's them," I murmured unnecessarily to Amanda. "I see them," she replied, her voice steady despite the slight tremor I felt through her hand on my arm. "She's pretty." "So are you," I said automatically, then felt foolish for the platitude. But Amanda smiled genuinely. "Thank you, Tyler. Shall we?" We moved deeper into the room, greeting other guests with polite smiles. I recognized a few faces from company events Jessica had dragged me to in the past. A woman named Beverly, who I knew was an executive director, nodded to me in recognition before her eyes slid curiously to Amanda. We were midway across the room when Jessica glanced up and saw us. The transformation of her expression would have been comical under different circumstances, surprise giving way to confusion, then dawning horror, as she recognized Amanda. She gripped Garrett's arm tightly, causing him to look up from his drink. Garrett's reaction was equally dramatic. His face drained of color as he looked from Amanda to me and back again, comprehension and panic fighting for dominance in his expression. "They've seen us," Amanda said softly. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." We approached the stunned couple directly, maintaining pleasant expressions as if this were any normal social introduction. Around us, conversation continued unabated, though a few nearby guests had begun to notice the strange tension in our little group. "Hello, Jessica," I said calmly when we reached them. "You look lovely tonight." Jessica's mouth opened and closed without sound before she managed. "Tyler. You're here. With who is this?" Her attempt at ignorance was undermined by her shaking voice. "I believe you know Amanda," I replied, watching realization fully dawn in Jessica's eyes. "Amanda Sullivan? Garrett's wife?" Garrett stepped forward, positioning himself slightly between Amanda and Jessica. "Amanda, what are you doing here? With him?" His voice carried a warning edge, though he maintained a strained smile for anyone watching. Amanda's composure was remarkable. "Hello, Garrett. Jessica. What a beautiful party. Tyler was kind enough to accompany me when you mentioned you'd be working closely with the marketing team tonight." The implication hung in the air between us. Jessica recovered enough to attempt damage control. There must be some misunderstanding. "Tyler, can we talk privately for a moment?" Her eyes darted nervously to colleagues at nearby tables. "I don't think that's necessary," I replied. "Amanda and I have become quite well acquainted over the past few weeks. We've had a lot to discuss." Garrett's professional veneer cracked further. "Whatever he's told you, Amanda, it's not what you think. Tyler is clearly unstable, making wild accusations because of his own marital problems." Amanda smiled without warmth. "Interesting theory. Perhaps you could explain these while you're at it?" She opened her clutch and partially removed a set of photos before tucking them away again, a calculated reminder of the evidence without public exposure. Jessica had progressed from shock to anger. "How dare you?" she hissed at me. "Bringing her here to my workplace, trying to humiliate me in front of my colleagues?" "That's an interesting perspective," I replied, keeping my voice level. "I'm simply attending a party with a friend. Any humiliation you feel comes from your own actions, not mine." By now, several nearby guests were openly watching our interaction, conversation dying down in our immediate vicinity. Beverly, the executive director, had begun moving in our direction, concern evident on her face. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, looking between the four of us. "Perfectly fine," Amanda replied smoothly. "Just catching up. I'm Amanda Sullivan, Garrett's wife." Beverly's eyebrows rose slightly. "Oh. Lovely to finally meet you. Garrett speaks so highly of his family." She turned to me. "And you must be Jessica's husband. Tyler, right? I think we met at last year's summer picnic." "That's right," I confirmed, shaking her hand. "Nice to see you again, Beverly." The mundane social exchange created a surreal contrast to the tension vibrating between us. Jessica looked physically ill, while Garrett maintained a rigid smile that resembled a grimace. "Well, I won't interrupt your conversation," Beverly said, though her expression suggested she sensed the undercurrents. "Enjoy the party. The dessert table is exceptional this year." As Beverly moved away, Jessica grabbed my arm. "This is completely inappropriate. You need to leave now." "Actually," I replied, gently removing her hand, "Amanda and I were hoping to enjoy a dance first. The band is excellent." Without waiting for a response, I guided Amanda toward the dance floor, leaving Jessica and Garrett staring after us in stunned disbelief. "Round 1 complete," Amanda murmured as I placed my hand respectfully at her waist for a formal dance position. "They're still watching us." "Let them watch," I replied, leading her into a simple step that matched the band's rendition of "The Way You Look Tonight." The irony of the romantic song wasn't lost on either of us, prompting a shared smile of grim amusement. As we moved across the floor, I could see Jessica engaged in an intense whispered conversation with Garrett. Other colleagues were beginning to notice something amiss, with curious glances directed at the agitated pair and then at us. "I think the compartments are definitely collapsing," Amanda observed, following my gaze. "Indeed. How are you holding up?" She considered the question. "Strangely, I feel powerful. For months I've felt like a victim. Tonight I'm taking control of my narrative." The song ended, and we returned to the edge of the dance floor. Jessica immediately approached, her professional mask barely containing her fury. "What exactly are you trying to accomplish?" she demanded in a harsh whisper. "Transparency," I replied simply. "Something our marriages have been lacking." Garrett appeared beside her, his composure more intact but his eyes cold. "Amanda, we should go home and discuss this privately. Think about the children." Amanda's spine stiffened. "I think about the children every day, Garrett. That's why I've consulted with Sophia Martinez. You'll be hearing from her next week." The name of the prominent divorce attorney landed like a physical blow. Garrett's confident facade crumbled momentarily before he rallied. "You're being impulsive. We can work through this." "There's nothing to work through," Amanda replied calmly. "My decision is made." Jessica turned to me, tears now forming in her eyes. "Tyler, please. Not here. We can talk about this at home. I made a mistake, but I love you. Don't throw away 12 years because of one slip." 8 months is hardly a slip, Jessica," I corrected her. "And using our anniversary dinner as an excuse to meet him was particularly creative." Jessica paled. "How did you know?" "I know everything. Every hotel, every lie, every time you left our bed to text him." Casey was very thorough. Recognition flickered in Jessica's eyes at the investigator's name. "You had me followed? How could you violate my privacy like that?" The absurdity of her indignation after months of deception was almost comical. "The same way you violated our marriage vows, I suppose?" "The difference is, I didn't promise not to investigate you, but you did promise to be faithful." Jessica's composure finally shattered completely. "This is all your fault," she cried loud enough that several nearby conversations stopped abruptly. "If you had been more attentive, more exciting, I wouldn't have needed someone else." Her outburst created exactly the scene we had hoped to avoid. Heads turned throughout the ballroom, and the band faltered momentarily before continuing their song. "Jessica," Garrett warned, grabbing her arm. "Not here." She shook him off. "Don't touch me. This is your fault too. You said she would never find out, that you had it all under control." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's illuminating." Garrett looked desperately between the growing audience, his professional reputation visibly crumbling before his eyes. "Amanda, please. Let's go home." "I'm not going anywhere with you," she replied. "In fact, I have something for you." She reached into her clutch and removed a small gift box tied with a silver ribbon. An early Christmas present. Confused, Garrett took the box and opened it. Inside, nestled on cotton, was his wedding band. He stared at it, speechless. "I won't be needing you to wear that anymore," Amanda said quietly. Jessica was still focused on me, mascara tracking down her cheeks. "Tyler, you can't do this to me. To us." "I'm not doing anything to us, Jessica. You already did it." I turned to the room at large, where pretense of private conversation had been abandoned. "I apologize for the disruption to your lovely party. Please continue enjoying your evening." Then, looking directly at Garrett, I added, "I sincerely wish you both all the happiness you deserve together." With that parting statement, I offered my arm to Amanda. "I believe we've accomplished what we came to do. Shall we?" Amanda took my arm with dignity. "Yes, I think we're finished here." As we walked toward the exit, Beverly approached again, her expression concerned but professional. "I'm not sure what's happening here, but perhaps it would be best if everyone took some time to cool down." "Excellent suggestion," I agreed. "Amanda and I were just leaving. Thank you for a lovely party." Behind us, Jessica called my name once more, her voice breaking. I didn't look back. In the hotel lobby, Amanda's composure finally wavered. "That was intense," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "Are you okay?" I asked as we collected our coats. She considered the question carefully before answering. "No. But I will be. And that's more than I could say yesterday." Outside, the December air was bracingly cold, clearing the emotional fog of the confrontation. As we walked to my car, Amanda suddenly laughed a genuine, if slightly hysterical sound. "Did you see his face when I gave him back the ring?" I couldn't help smiling. "I did." Almost as impressive as Jessica trying to claim moral high ground about privacy. Our shared laughter, echoing in the parking garage, felt like the first step towards something resembling healing. The drive from the Windsor Hotel was quiet, both of us processing the evening's events. I broke the silence first. "Do you regret going?" Amanda gazed out the window at the passing city lights. "Not for a second. It was messy and uncomfortable, but also necessary. For both of us, I think." She was right. Despite the public nature of the confrontation we'd hoped to avoid, there was something undeniably cathartic about witnessing Jessica and Garrett's carefully constructed deception collapse. "What will you do now?" I asked as we approached her neighborhood. "Tonight I'll kiss my sleeping children. Tomorrow, I'll call Sophia to accelerate the divorce filing." She turned to look at me directly. "What about you?" "Change the locks. Contact Marcus about finalizing divorce preparations." I managed a small smile. "Maybe take up that woodworking class I've been putting off." When we reached Amanda's house, I walked her to the door. Her babysitter, a college student named Paige, reported that Maxwell and Zoe had gone to bed without issue. "Thank you for tonight," Amanda said after Paige left. "Not just for the plan, but for seeing me. The real me, not just Garrett's betrayed wife." "Thank you for the same," I replied, realizing how accurate her words were. In our shared trauma, we had truly seen each other as complete individuals, not defined by our spouses' actions. I returned home to an empty house, Jessica having not yet returned from the party. I changed the main door's code and installed a new deadbolt I had purchased earlier that week. By midnight, my phone had 27 missed calls and 43 text messages from Jessica, ranging from tearful apologies to angry accusations. The following morning brought the inevitable confrontation when Jessica arrived, still wearing her party dress, eyes swollen from crying. "You changed the locks?" she demanded when her code failed. "Yes," I replied through the partially open door. "I've left some of your essential items in a bag on the porch. You can arrange to collect the rest of your belongings with Marcus Fletcher. He'll be contacting you." "Marcus Fletcher, the divorce attorney?" Her voice rose in panic. "Tyler, you can't be serious. We need to talk about this. We've had 8 months to talk, Jessica. You chose differently. It was a mistake. People make mistakes. You're right. My mistake was believing you were the person you pretended to be. I'm correcting that now. I closed the door on her protests, her pounding continuing for several minutes before silence finally fell. Through the window, I watched her eventually gather the overnight bag I'd prepared and drive away, shoulders slumped in defeat. The days that followed brought expected chaos. Jessica launched a multi-pronged campaign to salvage either our marriage or her reputation, depending on the audience. To me, she sent heartfelt apologies and promises of change. To our mutual friends, she crafted a narrative of my emotional distance, driving her to a momentary indiscretion. To her family, especially her father Warren, who had always treated me like a son, she portrayed herself as a victim of a controlling husband and workplace pressure. Garrett faced more immediate consequences. Amanda later told me that Beverly, the executive director who had witnessed part of our confrontation, had called Garrett into a meeting the following Monday. While infidelity wasn't grounds for termination, using company resources and time for the affair violated several policies. He was placed on probation and transferred to a different department, effectively demoted. Amanda filed for divorce the Tuesday after the party, having spent the weekend documenting financial records and consulting with her attorney Sophia. Garrett initially contested, pleading for reconciliation and therapy, but when Amanda produced evidence of his pattern of infidelity, including previous affairs Amanda had suspected but never confirmed, he became more cooperative, likely fearing worse terms if they proceeded to court. He's suddenly very concerned about his professional reputation, Amanda told me during one of our now regular coffee meetings. Sophia says that works in my favor. He'll agree to more generous terms to keep things quiet. My own divorce proceedings moved forward with similar efficiency. Marcus had prepared thoroughly, documenting how Jessica had used our joint funds for hotels and gifts. When presented with this evidence, she became more reasonable in negotiations, perhaps realizing her position wasn't as strong as she had believed. Our friend groups fractured along predictable lines. Some mutual friends felt forced to choose sides, while others distanced themselves from the entire situation. Dominic remained steadfastly loyal, even confronting a former college friend who had suggested I had overreacted. "Loyalty isn't negotiable," he told me afterward. "Neither is honesty." Jessica's family presented a more complex reaction. Her mother called to express her disappointment in both of us, Jessica for her betrayal and me for the public confrontation. Her father Warren, however, surprised me with his response. "Jessica told me everything," he said when he called one evening in January. "Or her version, anyway. But I've known you for 14 years, Tyler. You're not vindictive without cause." His understanding meant more than I expected. "Thank you, Warren. That means a lot. She's my daughter and I love her," he continued. "But she made choices I didn't raise her to make. Sometimes consequences are the best teachers." 6 months after the holiday party confrontation, spring had transformed the neighborhood. I had moved from our marital home into a smaller but more comfortable apartment closer to downtown. The divorce had been finalized in April, with a settlement that both Marcus and I considered fair given the circumstances. The smaller space suited my new priorities. Without Jessica's preference for showcasing, I'd furnished it with pieces I truly enjoyed: a leather reading chair by the window, bookshelves filled with titles I'd always meant to read, and a workbench for the small restoration projects that had become my meditation. Dr. Reynolds and I had continued our sessions, though less frequently now. "Healing isn't linear," she reminded me often. "But you're making remarkable progress." The progress showed in various aspects of my life. I'd reconnected with college friends Jessica had found boring, strengthened my relationship with my somewhat distant father, and even earned a promotion at work after channeling my emotional energy into several challenging client projects. "Pain can be transformative when we don't resist it," Dr. Reynolds had observed during our last session. "You've allowed yourself to feel everything without becoming bitter. That's rare and valuable." Amanda and I maintained our friendship, though with appropriate boundaries. We met monthly for coffee, sharing updates on our parallel journeys through divorce and recovery. Maxwell and Zoe had adjusted to their new family structure with the resilience children often display when guided with honesty and consistency. Maxwell asked if you could show him how to build a birdhouse sometime, Amanda mentioned during our May meeting. He remembers you talking about woodworking projects. I'd be happy to, I replied, touched by the boy's request. How are things with the co-parenting schedule? Amanda sighed. Improving slowly. Garrett's girlfriend is complicating things. Jessica moved in with Garrett? I asked, surprised despite myself. Oh no. Different girlfriend. A receptionist from his new department. Amanda's smile held more amusement than bitterness now. History repeats itself, apparently. 1 year after discovering Jessica's affair, I stood in my apartment looking at the life I had rebuilt. The initial devastation had evolved into something unexpected, not just recovery, but growth. The betrayal that had seemed world-ending had instead become world-changing, forcing me to reevaluate priorities and assumptions I might otherwise never have questioned. I had begun dating again cautiously. A coffee meeting here, a dinner there. Nothing serious, but each interaction helped rebuild my trust in human connection. The hypervigilance that had followed my discovery of Jessica's affair had faded, replaced by a more nuanced understanding of trust, not as blind faith, but as an ongoing choice supported by consistent actions. The most profound lesson, however, came from an unexpected source. During a rare dinner with my father, he had observed, "You seem more yourself now than before all this happened." The comment startled me. What do you mean? With Jessica, you were always trying to be what she needed. Now you're just Tyler. It suits you better. His insight crystallized something I had felt but not articulated. In trying to be the perfect husband for Jessica, I had compromised parts of myself without even realizing it. The painful dissolution of our marriage had, paradoxically, allowed me to become more authentically whole. This understanding transformed how I viewed the entire experience. What had happened wasn't just betrayal and loss. It was also liberation from a relationship that had subtly constrained us both. Jessica's affair, while never justifiable, was perhaps a symptom of deeper incompatibilities we had both denied. I shared this perspective with Amanda during our most recent meeting. Do you ever think that despite the terrible way it happened, the end result might actually be better for everyone? She considered this thoughtfully. Maxwell is thriving with his new routine. Zoe smiles more often. I'm teaching again and remembering why I loved it. She stirred her coffee. And I'm no longer twisting myself into knots trying to be someone's perfect wife while suspecting I was being lied to. So yes, I think there's truth in that. The path from betrayal to this point had been neither straight nor easy. There had been days of crushing grief, nights of anger so intense it felt physical, moments of doubt and self-recrimination. But through it all, maintaining dignity had provided a North Star. Not dignity as pride or appearance, but as self-respect and authenticity. For anyone watching this who might be experiencing the disorientation of betrayal, let me offer what I've learned. The discovery of deception is not the end of your story, but rather a painful chapter in a longer narrative. How that narrative unfolds depends not on what was done to you, but on what you do next. The most powerful response to betrayal isn't revenge or bitterness, but rather the reclamation of your authentic self. The journey through pain toward that reclamation can reveal strengths you never knew you possessed and values you might have compromised without realizing. Have you ever experienced a painful ending that eventually led to unexpected growth? How did you maintain your dignity through difficult times? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to share these lessons with others who might need them. And remember, sometimes the most brutal wake-up calls lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and authenticity in all your relationships.